call the meeting to order. What's the time?
7:05.
7:05.
Great. And we really only have one item on the agenda, which is to discuss potential legal action to ensure the town council does not prevent Tiverton voters from voting on Charter Review Commission proposals. This is in follow-up to our last full meeting, which was just the other day. It was Monday night, and we had just learned that the town solicitor had issued an opinion, which was basically what we were told by the town council president and another town councilor, that we'd be getting a memo, and we were told in no uncertain terms that some of our proposals would be blocked by the town council. And so that led us, particularly given the long history of 3 months or so of getting really no response whatsoever from the town solicitor, that we thought that the commission officers, which are the 5 of us, should talk about whether we have an obligation to the voters of Tiverton to make sure that their rights to vote on the proposals forwarded by their elected Charter Review Commission have a chance. So we happen to have 2 lawyers on this team of 5 people as well, for whatever that, for what that's worth. I have read the memo. It is very, very short, and it cites only one case. And I think there's a lot of room for disagreement. It's certainly not as open and shut as you may think. It's also, although I don't have as much experience here as maybe some of you do, but it's my understanding that in the history of Tiverton, a Charter Review Commission proposal has never been blocked by the town council. And I do believe that the prior town solicitor was of the opinion, which is my opinion, that the Charter Review Commissions cannot be blocked. So the concern that Jeff and I had coming out of our meeting with the town council president and another counselor with her was, in no uncertain terms, was that the town council president was in daily communication, was the word that I was told. In November, the word was, quote unquote, all the time. The word from Friday night was daily communication. And that the only reason that we heard back from Tony, or Rick heard back from Tony, back on February 1st was because Denise told him to reach out to us. So I think that from a neutral observer position, whatever you may think of the legal analysis, it's a little concerning that we're looking at several months of simply radio silence. And I did watch the town council video the other night, and I take very great issue with some of what I saw there. In particular, I saw the town solicitor act as though he had only received 1 batch of proposals from us. And I have with me copies of letters, no less than 11 formal letters that this, and by the way, our practice is that all 3 of us sign these letters, our vice chair and our lead secretary, so that everybody's in the loop and that, no one of us is. So there have been 11 letters sent to the solicitor, which we've gotten 1 response. And that 1 response we got was about a page long, 2 business days before our meeting, with almost no analysis whatsoever.
And at the meeting, you said he'd only gotten 1 from you?
Right, he said he got our first batch, and that he was going to get on with the second one. Well, I think the explanation is when we had. This is not news. I mean, we've had concerns for several months, and I frankly have been the one sort of trying to get absolutely every last benefit of the doubt. And but finally we had enough. And on February 5th we called our special meetings, and the special meeting also that we had included whether we should consider alternatives for legal review and representation if needed. And pretty much right after that happened, the next letter that Rick sent was when we got our first like literally email response. I mean, I've sent like I said, you sent 11 formal letters. I had 2 voicemails unreturned and 4 emails over the span of 3 months. Plus, I know that Rick himself had several messages go unanswered. And I don't know exactly when the leadership of the town council changed, but it does seem to be pretty close to that
It was
time
the,
frame.
what did I send it to?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to.
September.
In
7th,
September,
I believe.
okay. So another month.
September,
So that's where we are. And based on the guidance from the commission on Monday night, the 3 of us did send a formal request letter off to the town council to request an independent lawyer to represent this independently elected commission, since it's very clear to us that, it was boasted to us that the town solicitor is working for the town council. Even language to the effect that we're the ones who write the review. And that's just the way it is. Jeff can tell me if I missed anything. So here we are today, and the purpose of this meeting, and I'm happy to, we can go into an executive session, but I think we should spend some time in open session at a minimum to sort of talk about really more candidly, where we are, why we're here, and I'm particularly interested in your thoughts on, our duty to the voters to make sure that we, fulfill the jobs we were elected by them to do, which is to, work on this a whole year and then let them have the say on these votes. Do you want to add anything, Jeff, from the meeting Friday, or anything you think that I missed?
No, I think you covered it. Just reiterate a couple of things that it was under no uncertain terms. It was said flat out by the town council president that we're never going to agree on the casino. So that's just a kind of an important fact, that we have no other route here with the council. We've been told by the town council president that there will not be an agreement on the casino. So I think that that's important, because if we don't have that path, the only other path we have is a legal path, in my opinion. So that was one thing that you didn't mention in the meeting, that came out of the meeting Friday night. The other thing that I mentioned the other night that I'll just repeat again is, not only don't we have an attorney, but the attorney that's claiming he's our attorney is working against us. And so we're in a double precarious situation. So it's one thing to not have an attorney. It's another thing your attorney is trying to stab you in the back. And so that's the situation that we need to be cognizant of, that it's actually working against us. So I think that's something we need to consider. The other thing,
I just want to interrupt and talk a little bit about what that means. So let's talk about, for example, the casino language, right? So our proposals have been certainly discussed for a long time, but the literal casino language has been floating in circulation since we met on December 4th, and we sent a copy of that on December 6th to the town solicitor. So that has been out there for three months almost. And interestingly, we get a letter 2 days before our last meeting about 5 sentences of analysis, of which include really only 2 sentences of legal analysis, asserting that a rebate is somehow in violation of the Constitution. And normally when you would write a legal brief and say something is in violation of the Constitution, it would be about 10 pages long.
But the gist of what he sent about why you couldn't have the rebate had to do with fairness and taxes. Did it look like that to me?
Well, it appeared to be. I can't even make sense of it.
How can that be when he's saying that the casino revenue is not taxes? So how is that related?
well, that's just gross incompetence, because that's why I circulated to the commission his opinion from a year ago when Nancy and I were before the subcommittee. His opinion was that the casino gaming revenue was not tax dollars. Okay, that was, and Nancy and I sat there flabbergasted.
And we were there because at that time, as you remember, they're plotting how they're going to use the casino money And Jeff and I went to raise the issue that,
Right.
wait a minute, this is revenue. It goes
Yeah.
to taxpayers, the voters get this.
Yeah.
Revenue
No,
spent.
And I just misspoke. The solicitor said that because it's revenue, okay, it's not taxes and therefore not paying the FTR.
Right, it's coming from gaming.
But now, so he said specifically, it's not tax revenue. He said specifically, and therefore, okay, which we take issue with for a bunch of other reasons. But now his entire analysis
Is that his tax?
is that his tax revenue. So this guy's incompetent, okay, or he forgot that he wrote the memo. So this is what I mean
That
by
might not
working
be the
against
only answer. I interrupted you to really put a case, like an example of what he may or may not be competent, but he's not independent. Because it is absolutely impossible to look at that analysis, to see the timing of it, and to be told by a town council president that he's essentially working for her. And then you go and look as well. So you can see this too. He's out there writing ordinances for, amazingly, as we know, when they put their proposal together to take away the FTR, the legal language was already drafted. The language to take away the budget committee, the language to put the school committee budget underneath the town council. That was already drafted. Legal language was drafted. We had sent 11 letters with concepts. And when I did talk to him on February 1st, he said, I don't want to give a legal opinion on concepts. I just want to do legal opinions on drafting. I'm like, well, that was interesting because you never said that in the last 3 months. And I know you've been running around drafting legal language for counselors, supposedly single counselors, not the entire council. So I paused and interrupted Jeff because I want to, that's not just a hyperbolic allegation. That these are real things that he really is working against this commission, and we need independent. Now we can do the legal work, but we will be accused of being, it'd be better to have a truly independent council.
I interrupted Donna. I got more to say, but I interrupted Donna.
I was wondering if perhaps what he wrote is also undermining what the town council would like to do with the money, because if he's using tax argument for the money, then they can't just do anything with it either, because he's just undermined that whole casino subcommittee thing, and where they want to put the money or take the money or do with the money. They can't do either. So either it's not tax revenue, or comes under tax revenue, because that's the argument he's using. And I'm also concerned that whenever there's any type of case, don't, and I'm not a lawyer, but don't they look at past practice as far as how the town has handled charter commissions in the past? So if they do something different, that would be precedent setting. So you don't need, what would be the purpose of the Charter Review Commission if the town council is going to be that commission?
Well, what I might suggest is, and we can make this structure or not, but I think I want to talk about first the need for independent counsel, and then later on in this meeting we should talk about the merits of the case, which is kind of what you're getting at, because you raise a good point, and there's about 10 other good points that I think we can raise, which go directly against the opinion, and we'd have to make an assessment.
Well, let me ask a basic question. So you asked the town council to give us our own attorney, and I know we gave them till March 16th.
Yeah, we give them a lot of time.
I know, and I understand that. But if they say no, what are our avenues then for getting our own?
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, as we all know, we don't have our own budget, so we could explore trying to retain our own counsel, presumably at our own cost, so we could represent ourselves. I'd like to think on it more, but I actually think that the council is obligated to appoint a solicitor to us. And I should observe that there currently is, and historically in the town, the town deed town solicitor's law firm does not necessarily represent all of the legal interests in the town. Obviously, the school committee has their own lawyer. In the past, the planning board, I think the zoning board has had a separate counsel.
Yeah,
I think
they do.
don't the police do their own prosecutions now? That's not, so, you know, there's, we actually learned from the solicitor himself that the police trustees board has their own
Yeah.
counsel. I'd be very confident that we have special bond counsel as well, but the treasurer has bond counsel and does not. So I think that if the council does not appoint us reasonable, it's sort of like this other recent complaint that we're getting, that we're asking for too many photocopies, which, you know, this really shows you what we're dealing with. We have a $50 million budget in this town for 16,000 people. And they're complaining that we're asking for too many photocopies, even though our packets are about a quarter of the size of the town councils, right? I mean, this really shows you.
About the paperweight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, so we'd have to sort of make an evaluation, Nancy, on whether we want to engage our own counsel and then have to try to sue the town to pay for that bill, or if we want to. Just represent ourselves, which, I think we're quite capable of doing, frankly.
So the goal here is to get our proposals
To the voters.
to the vote, to get on the ballot.
Well, we also need legal review, ideally from somebody that's independent. But if somebody's going to tell us that a proposal is violates something, we're going to need more than a sentence issued the same day as somebody's telling us that we need somebody and they'll answer our questions. So, for example, the labor ones, we know those are hot topics, right? So we have a proposal out there that would require collective bargaining to be in the open, right? That needs a real legal, not like a sentence that cites a case from 1890 that comes in a day before a meeting, a public hearing, like a real legal analysis. So,
And Sisto, I don't think he's capable of it after the work I've seen it do. I don't think he's
or
capable.
unwilling.
Or unwilling, or he's being told not to.
And that's why in our letter we said there's really 4 reasons why we're making this request. 1, timely and responsive work, whether it's good work or not, we just don't have. 2 is good work, which we, 3 are, and this is beyond any debate, conflicts of interest. And of course, 4, if we're going to be in litigation, then it's going to be town versus town, so that would require. So, did we ever get back to your?
Well, my other points were about the conflicts of interest, and I think that I don't know. Disciplinary counsel, isn't that where you report lawyers who are unethical to their clients?
Yes.
Disciplinary counsel.
As a lawyer, I can tell you that.
So I think we need to take a serious step here to look at a 3-month vacuum and to look at the fact that, they're taking direction from somebody that's going to be shown to be our adversary. He's taking direction from them and putting his thumb on top of us and being the bidding for our opponent when he's supposed to be our attorney, and that's raises serious ethical conflict issues and requires discipline. So I think that this body should also consider going to the disciplinary council with a complaint against the solicitor, and in addition, I'm hoping that it will lead to depositions of the town council president, the solicitor. I'm not sure how those play out. But we want to get the town council president under deposition, because if she's directing the solicitor to put the thumb on us, and he's taking the advice when we're his client, he damn well knows he's supposed to advocate for us. So we need to get them under oath, and I'm not sure what the vehicles are to do that. That might one reason it'd be nice to have an attorney, but we need to get them under oath, and we need to show what's really going on here. And hopefully, ultimately, he should be disbarred. I'm just going to say it flat out. So that's where I'm willing to support this commission push this. And that was the other thing I wanted to say.
I think what really bothers me about this too is you submitted to him a 11, 12-page legal memorandum on a subject that was very important. And as we proceeded back in November, I think it was November 3rd, and that was after we had met with him to sort of go over with Tony DeSisto what we expected from him, what he expected to give us. And I remember at that meeting very specifically
Privilege.
Sorry. Okay.
No, he told us that his response would be privileged.
Yeah. It's privilege, and he broke his privilege. There's more reason he should be disbarred. He broke his privilege with us.
And I'm just wondering, has he told the town council at any point that they should meet with us? And also, if there's a conflict, he should have told us a long time ago
Well, that was
he
the
could
point
not
I was
present
trying to get
us,
at.
right?
He really felt that he couldn't do this.
He
Somewhere
should have
back in
said something.
November, he should have said, I really think I need to recuse myself. Instead, we've been sending him stuff regularly.
Right.
And just getting absolutely no response.
Well,
And that's a lot of wasted time
That's
for
why we
us.
need Dimidaris on the deposition.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy to put them under oath. And that puts them on notice that there's a conflict of interest here, and we need our own separate counsel.
Yeah. And I think everything I got from that Friday meeting between Dean Medeiros and Hilton with these two was just horrible. And they should both be. as far as I'm concerned.
So I think that's a good approach, both of those approaches. We've already requested legal counsel.
Yep.
Sir. Another thing to do is put them on notice that
Right.
they should be that they should be investigated.
I think those are two separate issues.
They are.
We still need the legal counsel, but that does not negate the fact that there has been an ethical problem here from the start. So I still think we need to go forward with filing a complaint
That's
against.
what
That's
Richard
what
just
he
said. That's what Richard just said.
And also, yeah, we
Right.
need to do both.
And
Yeah.
I think one will force the other to give us counsel.
Well, I'd have to think about that. I do want to say that there's still the fundamental legal questions exist regardless of the ethical disciplinary
Right.
issues. So we still need to answer some questions like, is this proposal going to fly or not?
Right.
Or can
Well,
the
that's only
voters
if we
be
get another
deprived?
counsel.
But we clearly don't have an attorney to do that, so
No.
we need to back up.
Well, you have two.
Well, no, I don't mean it that way. We don't
It's,
have an
you know,
independent counsel to do that.
Right, the same allegations will go against me, right? They'll say, oh, I mean, so that's part of the reason that you.
But, I mean, the planning board, the zoning board, they're not expected to, if there's a lawyer on the zoning board that person's going to represent themselves. And I think that's very unfair on our part, that we can't get legal counsel.
Well, we don't know that.
Yeah, they haven't responded, they got to the 16th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, what I did is I gave them to their next meeting,
Mhm.
and then some extra time, and hopefully we would get a response before our next meeting, since I canceled the meeting for Monday, so that we can all.
But I still want to do the complaint.
Right, the second path that Jeff has spoken to could drive a nice response from them with regards to a counsel. Right?
Well, let me
I mean, they may
Where is
suggest.
she an attorney?
Well,
Rhode Island
Let
and
me,
Mass?
let me suggest, I'd like to just, it's not like a lawyer looking out for a lawyer, but I don't want to go too far down that personnel path. I want to stay focused on the merits, and then we can have a separate agenda item. And what I think I'd like to do is I'd like to call up the Attorney General's office and just make sure, because the last time I tried to call the Attorney General's office on an open meetings question, they said, well, we don't normally give you advice. We don't normally give advice because we would expect you to get it from your town lawyer. And I said, well, that's the problem. So, I want to talk to them real quick before we go too far down the personnel path, because we probably should put personnel on the executive session agenda as well. But I want to talk to AG about that first. That's okay. I'm not trying to.
No, that's fine. We've got till the 16th, right? So,
Yeah.
and if we're gonna, I mean, you just saw a couple of us interested in going down that road. So
Right.
nothing stops.
Well, nothing stops an individual.
No, I understand that, but also nothing
But if
stops.
we acted as a group.
But nothing also stops, depending on that phone call with the AG, you from typing a complaint, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
As long as as long as it's just worked on independently. So, I think that what's important is that, we're approaching, March 1st today, so we got, 16 days, the clock's ticking. I think it's our next, I don't know when our next meeting is, probably after that, because we canceled the one just to take a breather on this.
Right.
So I think it's, if we're going to start, as the deadline comes, we could probably start
We could certainly call more of these.
typing on the keyboard,
First off as well. I do have, I also think we might consider filing a formal public records request. We've had to do this before because we've had problems getting responsiveness, but we could ask for all communication between town solicitor and town councilors.
Okay.
Well,
So-
now he broke his privilege with us, so is he going to claim, he can't, we're all one client, so we should just have access to all their communications.
Right.
I mean,
That's right.
So,
And normally what you
How's
would
that
do
work?
as a lawyer in this situation is he should recuse from the rest of the case.
Mhm.
So if this was if you two were married and then something happened, or if you two were forming a company and something happened, and the lawyer would step back and say, I'm out of here, you two need your own separate lawyer. So frankly, I didn't know you would get into this level of detail, but not only do I think we need independent counsel, I think he's required to recuse from, if we do end up in Superior Court or Supreme Court, I think.
well, he's the one that's going to be on the stand trying to answer questions, yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, there's that issue as well. But I mean, once you have knowledge of a client, then you're not
Right.
able to go adverse to them. So yeah, this can get complex in a hurry, and I'm still holding out hope that this can all maybe be mooted if we can get the town council to agree that they're not going to vote to block and prevent the Tiverton voters from voting on the proposals from their elected charter review commission. So I have some thoughts on that too as the conversation goes on, but I'm just throwing out the public records request as a sort of a simple, low cost first start. And that'd be an opportunity for them to show a little good faith, too.
well, it depends on how redacted it is. Right?
Well, because remember public records, this is very important to remember that. Just because you have an exception, this is like this entire conversation that we've had here on video and audio, and there's people in the audience, this entire conversation could be an executive session. We've chosen to, at least so far, we've chosen to have it out here in the open. Just because it is a public record does not mean that they have to keep it secret unless it obviously involves health insurance or something like that. So if we get around to taking some votes at the end of the night, that's kind of on my list for, I don't know if you think that's a waste of time, but
So, to get back to my original question, we are uncertain whether or not the council can block our proposals from going on the ballot.
who's we?
Say that again. What did you
You
say?
keep saying so.
What did you just say? We are uncertain?
Yeah,
so
let me just rephrase. There is uncertainty as to whether the council can block us.
Yeah, our charter could be written more clearly, as many areas in the charter are.
They usually go by past practice when they start to look through that.
Everything in law, if you look at it long enough and, you put two lawyers in a room, they're going to find something to disagree with. So, I can't tell you it's 100%. I would say, the odds are something,
So if the town council said, we're not putting these on the ballot, they have access to, what do they call the people that run the ballot?
Board of
Board of
Canvassers.
Canvassers,
Right.
right? They appoint them. Sounds like they could do it, maybe not legally, but they have the mechanics and the authority to do it.
Well, so do we. We could go straight to the Board of Canvassers
right.
and just blow off the council.
So the way this goes
We
down
have that
is-
option too?
Why not?
The one thing I will agree with them on is that the town council has the right to set the specific wording on the ballot.
That's the summary.
This much is clear. So if you take, you know, all the legal language that we had up on the screen the other night, you got to boil it down to, you know,
What the summary is.
you know, shall the budget committee be changed from 11 to 9? You know, it's got to be like just a couple sentences. You can't, it's going to be too confusing for the voter to have. So that ballot question, and that can be controversial, right? You can, you know, let's say one of their proposals, they want to take away the FTR, right? And, I mean, you know, I'm concerned about the way they might write that up, right?
Shall the town council have an increased role in budget process? That means take
instead
away
of
the FTR.
mentioning,
That's
shall
how
the
you word
FTR
ballot
be
question.
destroyed, shall the budget committee be disbanded, shall the school committee submit its budgets to the town council? So that ballot question, you know, if they want to play political games, I think they
That's
do.
where they should do.
We are going to present recommended ballot questions. There's also, as I understand from these prior voter information guides, the reason for change and effective change. That's just in a guide, though, right? Is that does not appear?
That's the one ballot.
Okay, so that's
But it gets mailed.
a little bit of a jump ball. I mean, in the past, I thought it was a joint publication. And for those that are interested in getting into some of the legalese, when you look at our charter, you'll see section 1218, I think, specifically speaks of the Charter Review Commission advocating in a referendum or in an election, right? And maybe we should pull that out, but one of the many, many very strong arguments that we have is that that language could not possibly have been there if it was possible for the Charter Review Commission to not be involved in the end of the process or to have their proposals blocked. Of course, the memo that was whipped together doesn't address that. So there's a lot of authority and precedent behind our position on this. So if you know, if the Board of Canvassers did put our proposals on the ballot, and the town council didn't want to, or vice versa, then you have a situation much like the school committee did when the school committee brought a lawsuit against the town for the FTR last year, and they would go in Superior Court and try to get a judge to make a ruling on that. So we do have an alternative. But there's obviously political alternatives as well, and we can talk about that. I, for one, I'm going to make it my mission in life to make sure these get on the ballot, even if we did lose a legal review on this, and that might involve another special election in the future, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I think the real losers here would be the people that you know, went and voted and what the outcome is and feeling that they had accomplished something and wanted some changes to the charter. And they're being shut down too. It's not just
Well, this is the
us.
thing. Councilor Chabot asked the solicitor the other night, you know, what do all these other towns do? And the solicitor then answered, well, they do, and he never mentioned the difference between this Charter Review Commission and every other town in the state, say maybe one that, is that we're elected. I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
When your financial town meeting change advisory commission was held, guess what the A stood for in that? Advisory, right? So, by its very existence, it just defies logic that you have an elected advisory commission. So we have a whole bunch of legal arguments. I'm not particularly, we can go in executive session and I can walk you through them, and Nancy has helped look at them with me as well. I've tried to share my thoughts with the solicitor on that. I have no doubt that he's shared everything I've said with him, Denise, but this isn't one of these kind of cases where, I almost feel like here's what we got and, let a judge decide. I almost feel like we're obligated to the citizens to do that. Otherwise, what did we have an election for? What did we spend all that money for?
And I think the particulars of this election are very singular. I mean, there were 24 candidates, and it was the 9 of us who ran, endorsed by the Tiverton taxpayer on specific pledges. that the taxpayers overwhelmingly put in. So, which goes to Donna's argument. I mean, I think we were elected because they expected our product, that they trusted what our product, or hoped to trust what our product would be, and they would have an ability to vote for it.
Or at least have a place to vote for it. And remember, if the council doesn't like our proposals, they can put their own proposal on. So if we want to change the budget committee from 11 to 9, and they want to change the budget committee from 11 to 13, you put them both on the ballot, and guess what our charter says? Our charter says the one with the highest vote getter wins. Now, why would that language be there?
Right. If the town council was the only entity that would put a proposal on, why do you have to have language in the council in case two proposals the same?
Right.
Well, I don't think they want another proposal. I don't know what they're
No,
afraid of.
but
But their
our charter-
proposals
The
are
charter,
so wonderful.
the charter contemplates it.
The charter contemplates if two conflicting proposals.
I understand that, but my point is that what are they afraid of?
I have no idea.
They don't even want to give people a choice. If their proposals are so wonderful, what's the problem?
That is a good point. Now, I don't know what they're afraid of, quite frankly. I don't
Because
care.
they're lousy
Well,
proposals.
we know already that they're trying to take away the FTR
Right.
and take all the casino money. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. I mean, there's a lot of other important stuff out there, a lot of other great work that's being done. And remember the context here, right? We met with them, July, early August, September, October, November. They had a couple meetings, like they had a quorum, and some, they didn't have.
Flat tires, dead batteries, yeah.
Meanwhile, they were working on those proposals. The solicitor was working on those proposals behind the scenes, never released to the public
Nope.
until they showed up at the meeting. Nancy had to almost rip them out of it once they became public documents.
Well, and don't forget
So-
that night when they didn't have a quorum, and I was there to tape their meeting, and they didn't have a quorum. But that's when they passed out these things. And guess what wasn't in that first pass out, if you'll recall? It was the whole getting rid of the budget committee. There was
Oh,
nothing
right.
in the
Fifth.
budget committee on the
Yeah.
FTR.
Yeah, amazingly that didn't.
That was the 5th, yeah.
So then we had a deadline that everybody else in the whole town was able to, by the school committee, the budget committee, the treasurer, the police chief, everybody else was able to make it, right? And we've extended the deadline, and then we still never got a formal transmittal. You had to go get the request. Of course, they're not on form. They don't explain why they want to. So there's really no other reason, there's just no other way to conclude this other than it's consistent with their efforts to try to destroy the FTR. And so that's why they don't want the people to vote on it.
So I'm just wondering what the.
And if we're wrong, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
I'd love to see somebody say it,
That's the
but they're
thing.
not saying it.
Yeah.
Tensions are rising over this, and all they have to do is publicly make some statements.
Yeah.
But they
Of
won't.
course, your proposals will go on the ballot.
Well, I'm wondering if we should, I don't know that I don't think we should make a final decision on the lawsuit until we've had at least the opportunity to consult with an independent lawyer, and I think we have some time. But one of the things I'd like to talk about is before we actually file the complaint, if that's what the majority wants to
The
do.
disciplinary council?
No, the Superior Court.
Okay.
Is whether we should try to, because this is not good for the town, right, to see this kind of stress and this fighting. And I'd like.
It's not our fault.
Well, I agree with you, but I'd like to suggest maybe that we give the council an opportunity to once and for all stop the slow roll, stop the games, and really put this to bed, and let's see if they'll take a resolution that says we're going to put your stuff forward, and give them the opportunity. I don't know that we need to rush into court tomorrow. I think we have some time, maybe a month.
All right, so our next deadline is 16th.
That's their deadline.
That's their deadline, right. So I think we need to have an idea of what we're going to do on the
Next.
17th.
Yes,
Well, it wouldn't be 17th, it'd be the 19th.
it would be Saturday.
But we still have 7 months to the. And by the way, these do not have to be voted on the general election. This is another thing. It's a little.
Special election.
Well,
Right.
yeah, they want that because their chances of getting rid of or destroying the FTR, they think, are greater in the general election. That's why there's such a big push. Okay, so that's why there's a big push to get all this done for the general hearing. And
There
that's what
have
they
been a lot of very disingenuous comments, such as they're very worried about the timing. Here we are sending letter after letter after letter, and with no response, and we're sort of worried about the timing on things. So, but there's no reason why, and what half or 2/3 of the prior charter changes have been in special elections.
All right, but I want, after the
We have some
16th,
time.
I'd like to have Plan B and execute it.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to get across, is on the 17th, we have Plan B, and we start putting that into.
But we have a meeting on the 19th.
We have a meeting on
So
the
I guess
19th. That's where it should be on the agenda, and we start discussing.
Well, now you're getting into strategy though, so
Yeah, I might suggest.
maybe we can go into session.
I don't want to lose a lot of the regular time. I might suggest another special meeting with, obviously open to the whole commission, but you know, mandatory, frankly, for us. And you know, we probably want to talk a little bit more about strategy at that point, especially if it involves things like raising funds out of our own pockets and stuff like that. Or we might be able to find pro bono counsel, or maybe we need to make that part of the lawsuit that the treasurer is required to reimburse the commission.
Well, I don't understand, I mean, to me, it's just clear, like, we just send the bill to the treasurer. I mean, it's just obvious, just like go straight to the Board of Canvassers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to think about that a little bit. But, so I would probably suggest that we stay, we had, 7 meetings. I'm not even talking about our meetings, 7 full meetings in 8 weeks or something. So it's one of the reasons why we decided to kind of give the team a break on Monday. But we have a lot of ground to cover, regular business to cover on the 19th. Maybe we should have another special meeting on the 20th or the 21st. Go from there, if that's okay.
As long as we can, pull for availability, that's all.
Yeah. We know too. I mean, if we do get independent lawyer, we have to then work with his or her schedule, obviously, to see what.
You just mentioned something about a resolution, you think?
Well, I've just been thinking about how do we diffuse this time bomb, and I hear, like as all of us, you hear from your constituents, and I've heard from people on the town council too, and I always, sometimes I hear, and this is why, frankly, I've given them the benefit of the doubt for 6 months. Is first it was very busy, and then it seems like the whole government has turned over for one reason or another, right? I mean, the town administrator, they had their own little insurrection on who the new council president was. It did appear that they really had their hands full for a few months, and I was frankly asked to give them the benefit of the doubt, and over the objection of many of my colleagues, I did. And actually, I feel like I was taken advantage of, frankly, by them for doing that. And,
All right, well, let's not get taken advantage of anymore, so let's have a Plan B.
Yeah, well.
And we need to know what we're going to do as soon as possible. And there are people here from the public, they're here. I was wondering if we could hear what they have anything to say in regards to what's going on. Mr. Combs, any questions? Anything at all?
Yeah, we always leave our meetings open, so if anybody has any questions or comments, we have time. Okay. You can count on Sally.
Yes, thank you.
So.
Yes, Sally Black, liaison from the school committee. Basically, I've attended most of all your meetings.
See, they know how to do a liaison, right?
Just for the record.
Right.
So anyway, as you said, it was a huge election, a lot of people, 9 of you rose to the top of that. So my question is, on such an important matter that seems so serious, one of the most serious things I've heard in town, been here a long time, why aren't they all here? Because you're all equally elected. It doesn't matter if you're chair or vice chair. I mean, on the school committee, all the chair means is that you call meetings. Everybody else has to. Like the other night when you had something in the minutes that Jerry and I would do something, Jerry and I can't do something unless the 5 people vote. You know what I mean? And if we have such an important thing, if someone can't come, we usually continue it till the next meeting.
Right.
Unless it's just routine, do this, do that.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
so I'm just wondering why
Why the other four commissioners are here?
all the people aren't here tonight.
Yeah, that's just my call. I mean, my kind of view is to try to divide the work, and so I think it's our obligation to at least present a recommendation. We certainly don't have more sway than the rest of them.
No, I know.
They would expect us to have a recommendation that kind of comes with the job we signed up for, so.
And then they would come and vote.
Oh,
that
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. This.
Because it's serious, what you're.
Yeah,
what
and
you're
I would never want to take a step so serious, even on a 5-4.
Right,
I mean,
no.
you've seen me do this even.
Yeah, okay.
We have our own internal rules even on the charter, on the proposals.
Yeah,
That
all right.
if somebody's not there, we do revotes if it's a
Thank you.
5-4 vote. So, I mean, I can't guarantee, I mean, that's part of the beauty of having 9. Remember,
Right, you
rare to
never
have
know,
9,
someone
have
could be
9.
away or
I'd
something.
like to
I know
see
that,
7. That's just my point of view. I don't know if you have a different.
Well, I
point of
just
view.
want to state that it's my understanding too, that one of our members is in Colorado for the
Yeah, they
week.
could be away, of course.
And
yeah.
the other, another member just
In
got on a
China.
plane to
He's
China.
in China.
And another one's in Costa Rica.
Well, then they
Oh, all
can't
right,
be
and
here.
we're here.
I think so. I think we have 2 to 3 travel.
They can't be here then, of course.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But, yeah, so, okay, so do you, we don't, you all have the right to call for executive session. I don't feel the urgency to do that tonight, but
No.
I'm not trying to squelch anybody's. I do think, unless Donna thinks I'm being softy here, I think we've got I think we do have some time, and I think there's a good, I'm still optimistic.
well, I want to go back to this topic of this resolution though.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing's bubbling up and, I mean, I know where I'm going. I didn't work as hard as I did to sit at this table with all of you to get rolled over and sell the taxpayer out and not fight to the end. So I know where I'm going on this. And so that makes for, a long 8 months and longer than 8 months, really. If, probably going to need a special election after November to straighten out all the mess out. So, my question is you mentioned something about a resolution by us / by them, or, I'm not quite sure, a request or a resolution. Maybe it's a resolution by both parties. But I think that has some merit to try to,
Put it on
diffuse
record.
the situation. That still requires some trust, but,
It's just something it was just brainstorming, because I often, and I know, I guess this comes with the territory, but sometimes you'll see a disconnect between what you see on TV or you see in the minutes versus what you're insisted was the case, It was like all those meetings where they just magically never seem to have a quorum, and it's, like, oh, this person that's.
yeah, so that was for the part of the slow roll.
Right, part of the slow roll. And so, one thing I think is if there, let's say that they think that the solicitors are right and that they can prevent the voters from voting on our proposals. They don't have to prevent it. So I was thinking
They can still do the right
they could take
thing.
a resolution, and if I see 7 town councilors, the 7-0 vote, say no, we're going to let the people decide. We might campaign against it, which is fair.
We put our own on.
They might put their own on, which is fair. But, and I think that's really, I think lets them have the opportunity to send a message that says, look, let's just, let's let the people decide. Let's let the people decide. So that's just something we could, bring that to the full commission and see if they'd be, interested in supporting that and send that off. And that could be maybe a last chance, in a month and see if cooler heads will prevail. But
So I guess in that regard, and I don't appreciate, no, I do appreciate, but I certainly don't have the skill to whip things like that off so quickly. Is that something that we should, have on the next agenda, or is that something I'm just trying to, I'm not the chair, like
Yeah, okay.
strategically, should it be on the next agenda, should it drop in front of us, or should we discuss
I
it?
mean, is that the craziest idea I've ever heard? I'm happy to whip something up and let you chew on it for the next meeting.
What are
That's-
we whipping up? I mean, if they tell us on the 16th they're not even going to deal with us and we can't have an attorney.
Well, they may be able to say that if they vote 7-0 on a resolution that our stuff's going to the ballot,
If
and
they agree
if
that
they
our
contest
stuff
it,
is going on the ballot.
then the whole issue's maybe moot.
Yeah.
So
Except we still need,
we still need legal review.
We still
which
need
is an
legal
issue,
review.
because they can still squash us with Tony, right? They can still just say it's all illegal. But
Yeah.
I think that, if we have an assurance of going on the ballot, we just need to have a fresh cup of coffee and then relook at our situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said yourself, Mr. Chairman, like that thing about meeting in public, right? I mean, we all know that the final language there is going to be, a lot of thread in the needle, and probably. And so, in that regard, if we had legal counsel, whoever it is, thread that needle, then that's fantastic, because we know it's going to need that. So,
Well, I'm not actually. My view is that this stuff isn't really that challenging. The concern that I have is using, and I've seen this where you try your lawyer out to give them cover.
oh yes,
So, to say something is like, oh, that's never going to work. So then that gives them cover.
Right.
And I think it's important, just like the school board has, that, they can say, no, because, so he's got a legal opinion, and that's where it is. It's an opinion.
So I guess the question then begs the question: even if we had assurance of a resolution,
Right.
we're still
without.
going to be
legal
blocked by Tony. Tony's going to do the bidding for them no matter what.
Well, one thing I'd say is, now Denise has refused to meet with us again, unless she has a whole quorum, which, they've never had before.
That won't happen.
So, but we could give them a month to see if they're actually going to, come back home. And, maybe there's a chance then that we could reach a compromise. And so we'd be a little less concerned, that they're using, just sort of bought and paid for opinions to block things on the merits if we had more of a dialogue. And that's what we've been trying to get all along is, at least try to narrow the issues. And, the whole capital improvement fund is a great example of, we were following the lead of the town administrator and the casino subcommittee, and we just said this the other day, like, what do you want? Like, we just did this. There's people out there that want 100%. So, there's still a chance that,
I
give
still,
them
for
a couple
one,
weeks.
am planning to write a letter to the editor,
Right.
just myself. I think the town has a right to have a sense of what's going on.
I'm just answering Jeff's question on whether it's even futile to ask for the resolution. What's the downside of giving one more chance?
Well, waste of time is the downside. We've been 6 months and here we are.
Well, it's one opportunity for them to take the seize on before we start going down other paths. That's all it is. And maybe it'll work. And if we have the time to do something like that.
Well, we may also find that if they, if there was consent by a resolution, that we may all of a sudden find that, Tony's a lot more cooperative with us.
Right.
Because he got the okay from the boss,
Right.
So, we can, I don't see any downside to it, so I'd like to, really just say that I'd almost like to see it on an agenda soon, maybe our next agenda. Our next agenda, which is the 19th.
I guess
And then we can just put it in front of everybody in the committee, it'll all be noticed, and then we can talk about, we can have this with the full commission, what this looks like and why we're doing it. And, that's a demarcation line for them, and, so.
Yeah.
And I get back
In
to
us.
the issue, if, let's say we do that, and let's say it's all come by, oh, yes, of course you can go on. We're still, and Tony may or may not let's say we all think he's going to cooperate, I still think he's in a real bind.
Yeah.
Because it's absolutely clear from the proposals we have seen of what they want to do and what we're putting forth. They're diametrically opposed, and he's already, well, you know, they're in opposition. And he's already given an opinion on one huge thing we're thinking about. So I would think at that point, he needs to recuse himself, and then both need to get.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit,
Okay.
because this may sound a little counterintuitive, but let's just for an example. I mean, just because the solicitor has an opinion that something is illegal, right? I love when people throw out that word, like it's illegal. Like, nothing is legal or illegal until a court of law, after appeal, has said it's legal or illegal, right? So I don't think that the council can block something just because an unelected, appointed lawyer has decided that it's illegal. If it's illegal, then, and it gets passed, right, and it gets ratified by the General Assembly, and it's still illegal, then somebody can do what happens all the time. You know, you've seen it with, you know, every time there's a court case, someone can then try to say it's illegal. But if you're going to let an unelected lawyer, and I am a lawyer, right, but if you believe in democracy, you can't allow one person, an unelected lawyer, decide like an emperor, thumbs up, thumbs down on a proposal. So the answer is, if we get a commitment that they're not going to deprive the voters of the opportunity to vote, then what they should do is put their proposal on, which they think is legal. And if they lose and if we win, then they can try to bring a court action or whatever the case may be. If they really don't want taxpayers to have a rebate, then file your case, right? So it's I haven't said this so much because I hoped it wouldn't come up, and I don't want to make it sound like it doesn't matter when something's, you know, legal or not. But it's not really the role of the town solicitor to block anything. You can give an opinion, but it's up to the voters. And remember, these things get ratified by the General Assembly. So it's pretty hard to have something be illegal. I mean, if it contradicts federal law, then, you know, then we can deal with it. But there may be things that are not wise politics. It might be bad policy. So I'm less concerned if we know we are not blocked, because then I'm less concerned about who thinks what is legal or not, because it either is or it isn't, right?
And he's not the one to decide.
Of course they have to decide, right? And there's ambiguity all over the law.
Right.
And so you never know what's legal or illegal in many cases. You know, this is like, I often use the example of the difference between, when I talk to my clients, the difference between a speed limit and driving too fast for conditions, right? You've heard of that, right? You can actually get that, right? So if it's a speed limit, this is very clear, right? It's driving too fast for conditions. Well, was it dark? Was it raining? Did you have a four-wheel drive? How big is your vehicle? Like, there's no clear answer to that. And so, you know, I think we need to be a little clear here. Are we talking about something that's a speed limit? Or are we talking about something that actually requires an analysis given the context? And that's part of why law is very frustrating, because so much of law is like, was it too fast for conditions or not? You don't really know until you get into a court. So I don't know if I went too far down the path there for to answer your question.
No, I agree. Yeah, I guess I agree.
Well, I think it's a stepping stone situation.
Yeah.
You know, if we had, like Rob said, if we had the assurance that they will compete with proposals they disagree with their own proposals, then I think that's, like I said earlier, that's a wake up, a fresh cup of coffee moment, and we can see where things go with the solicitor. And I think, frankly, we got that assurance that I also think that the town council president will order the solicitor to play ball. Which obviously isn't happening now. So, I think, you know, I think we got that assurance. And I think, frankly, we got that assurance that the town council president will order the solicitor to play ball. Which obviously isn't happening now. So, I think, frankly, we got that assurance that the town council president will order the solicitor to play ball. Which obviously isn't happening now. So, That's my 2 cents. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't see any downside to it, and I think, we learned something. If we get a 7-0 vote, we learned something, and we can go to the next level. If we don't, then they won't even if we don't, then we learn something too, and we need to.
We need the time anyway. I mean.
So is this something we would propose we put on their agenda
Yeah, I would.
to propose a resolution?
I'd all even write it for them.
Yeah.
Trying to take every excuse away that
Yeah.
I think
and just
actually
say,
that's
hey,
a really good idea.
So, and we would need time anyway. I mean, if Nancy and I have to write up a lawsuit because we're going on alone, I'm going to need time to do that. Nancy's going to need time, and if we're talking about taking discovery and everything, I mean that's obviously going to take time and subpoenas and the whole thing. So
when are you going to?
Can we be present at the depositions?
normally, yes.
Great.
I mean, you can't have like 15 people.
No, it's good. I want to be there.
So.
Are you going to call the AG for what?
Well, earlier in the meeting, we spent a lot of time on personnel issues, and I wanted to kind
All
of
right,
stay focused on the merits of the case.
So we're all set then?
Yeah, why don't we can wait on the APRA request. I can bring it up for a full vote to the committee as well.
Can it be drafted, or is it?
Or we can just send it. I mean, I think that's within our inherent.
Well, I just want to know what the APRA's qualifications.
Well, that's what we asked for the last time, was all the communications, and we didn't press the request. The clerk met with Rick, and I got a bunch of phone calls that said, "Oh, it's all good. Don't worry about it. The battery really died. Don't be paranoid." I think I remember.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of lies were made. So I mean, I think it would be interesting to see. Those communications.
But these
Yeah.
are
And
communications between the town council and
The solicitor and every town councilor having to charge commission. If they hide behind the public record, that would also be a very interesting piece of data. Because normally communications, one-on-one communications don't have.
Executive session, have they discussed it in executive session?
They haven't. I mean, maybe they will. That would be another interesting to see if they go hide in executive session. But at the end of the day, like, we can talk all this strategy and all these laws, but at the end of the day, this is a very simple case, right? Why can't the voters of Tiverton vote on proposals that their elected representatives? The other thing, we didn't get all into this, but they're talking about who the legislative body is, and we're the legislative body
Right, for the charter.
for the Charter Review Commission. So I think that needs to just go in front of the judge. Is there any other questions? Is there any objection to terminating the meeting?
One quick thing, the formal record request, could we do that, or do we have to wait till our next meeting?
No, we can send it to them. I mean, that's it.
Let's do that, get that going.
With the three of us, can we?
Yeah, I mean, any of us can do it, but I kind of like the practice that we have. I mean, if the three of us agree on something, usually we're in pretty good shape.
Good. I'd get that going.
Yeah. So we're
Going to withdraw.
all five of us can sign it.
I'm going to withdraw.
Yeah, I mean, you can take a vote on that if you want. Okay. So why don't we do that? And then we'll kind of keep something moving. We'll have that request. And I still don't know where you are on the ratification stuff. I've asked for since August.
They dropped the ball.
You dropped it?
And the state dropped the next 2 weeks.
All right. Well, maybe that one can wait a little bit since we've got some other bigger issues. Okay.
Okay.
We good? All right. What's the time? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.